I'm not sure how many people know that in 2007, the Prince William Regional Beekeepers Club started pursuing learning about nukes in an effort to become more sustainable and be able to support ourselves and make our own bees. And in 2008, we applied for and we won the Sustainable Agriculture Research and Education Grant to learn about making nukes. And we had a whole plan where we were going to buy queens and we were going to make spring splits. And the very first thing that happened in our grant was that we met Mike Palmer. And he talked about overwintering nukes, which kind of turned this whole plan and idea that we had on its head. And the first nukes that many of us ever even made were overwinter nukes. What Mike's here to talk about tonight is really not just a technique for how to make nukes. He's here to talk about a plan for sustainability in your apiary. And I want to make a special plea, especially to my own club members. We've been teaching and lecturing and workshopping for years now. And if you're able to listen tonight, I think Mike is really going to pull it all together, a lot of what we've been teaching the past couple of years. And I hope you're able to understand that it's really a plan that you too can implement. So Mike is one of the most experienced and most intuitive beekeepers I've ever met. He has a unique gift for being able to talk to you if you have 2 hives or if you have 200 hives. We're thrilled to have him here and proud that he considers Virginia a friend. It's his 3rd visit. Today's, I think, 3 years, almost to the date that he was at the Virginia State Beekeepers Association. So with that, Mike, I'm just going to turn it over to you.
Can't believe I'm here again. This is pretty nice. It's like last time, I still got snow on the ground, and no pollen yet, and my bees aren't bringing pollen in yet. So I sort of changed the name of my presentation here to the Sustainable Apiary, and it's sort of because I'm writing a book about it now, finally, which is going slowly, and I really think that's what it's all about now, is sustainability in your apiary. It's not self-sufficiency. Self-sufficiency is different. Self-sufficiency is nothing comes in from outside the apiary. Well, where do you get your beehives, and where do you get your sugar, and where do you get, so. But sustainability is, it's the ability to sustain your apiary from your apiary. So that's what I'm going to talk about tonight. And I'm going to talk about how to set them up and the reason for setting them up. So I talk about nucleus colonies as being the foundation of successful beekeeping. Because when you have a supply of nucleus colonies in your apiary, you can have a lot of problems, and you can recover from a lot of problems if you have nucleus colonies backing you up. We all want to stop putting chemicals in our hives. So we all want to stop treating for varroa mites. So what happens if you stop treating for varroa mites? You lose a bunch of your bees. But if you had nucleus colonies coming along to back you up, now you can start working on alternative methods of keeping your bees without chemicals, without treating for varroa mites. I haven't got there yet. I'm still treating for varroa mites. But I think my bees are getting better, and I think with every generation, my bees are getting better. I'm seeing less deformed wing virus. I'm seeing the bees able to go longer into the fall before I see deformed wing virus. That to me is what the difference is now in my bees. I used to have deformed wing virus in May and June, and now I'm not seeing really very much of it until September. So it's giving me that time. So now I've gained a few months. I'm still working on it. And it's a long-term project. It's a forever project. I can talk about a little bit before I get started on how to do this and why I do it, about sustainability. Somebody was once talking to me about Kirk Webster. He's sort of the one that got me involved in this nuke-making wintering business. And they said, it's all about Russian bees. It's because Kirk Webster has Russian bees, and it's all about Russian bees. And I told him that, we both laughed, because it's not about Russian bees. It's about your bees. It's about in this program, there are three sides of this program. There are production colonies, and nucleus colonies, and mating nucleus colonies. And the production colonies, they have the hardest time wintering because they're brood factories. And because they're brood factories, they're mite factories. And so they get much higher mite loads, and they have much more difficulty wintering and living because they have mite problems and deformed wing problems and virus problems. But the colonies that perform the best are the colonies that you choose your breeder queens from. And then you raise your breeder, the regular nucleus colonies that you overwinter, they don't have such a problem with varroa mites. They have an ability to winter, to build up and winter and go through a winter without even needing to be treated. And so then you've got the second year with them, the first full summer with them. You haven't treated these nucleus colonies. And I'm finding that my second year colonies are going farther into the winter all the time. And then you're picking breeder queens from your production colonies and growing queen cells in your mating nucleus colonies. The mating nucleus colonies never have to be treated. You're pulling the queen out of them I'm pulling a queen out every 16 days and putting a new queen cell in them. So they never really get a high mite load built up. So you've got the three sections supporting each other. You've got the mating nucleus colonies raising queens for the regular nucleus colonies. You've got the regular nucleus colonies supporting the failing production colonies. And you've got the production colonies giving breeder queens to the mating nucleus colonies. So it's this big circle. So that's the theory. That's the theory I'm working on. So I have to give thanks to where I got this information from. This is not my idea. I didn't dream this up. Brother Adam dreamed it up. Brother Adam from Buckfast Abbey. If you want to read his book, it's called Beekeeping at Buckfast Abbey. And you can still buy it. It's not in print, I don't believe, but you can get it online from avebooks.com. And Brother Adam, he believed that queen bees were better the second year. The second year the year after they were bred, was their best year. So he would overwinter his queen bees in nucleus colonies. His book talks about queen breeding, and he focuses on queens and queen breeding. He doesn't focus on nucleus colonies. That was an aside. He just mentioned that he wintered his queens in nucleus colonies. I read the book, I didn't catch it. I didn't catch the wisdom and the importance of wintering nucleus colonies. Kirk Webster from Vermont didn't hear it either. He didn't catch it either. But he started raising queen bees way before I did. But his nucleus colonies in the springtime, in the fall, after he was done raising queens, he would unite them together and build up stronger colonies and winter the nucleus colonies in stronger colonies. But one year he forgot something. He forgot to unite them. And when he got to his apiary to pack everything away for winter, there were some nucleus colonies. So what was he going to do? It was too late to unite anything. So he put them on top of production colonies and said, well, we'll see what happens. Well, what happened was they lived through the winter. So that was like a light went off. And the next year he did the same thing with more, and they wintered over. So he tells me, Mike, you've got to do this. You've got to start wintering nucleus colonies. Well, I'm keeping about 800-900 colonies, pollinating apples with 600 colonies by hand, no pallets and no forklift. And I'm trying to make a honey crop. And I haven't got time for this. I haven't got time to start a new project in my apiary. And, I looked at it as, that's cute. But I don't have time for this. I didn't see the wisdom of it. So here I am struggling, pollinating, trying to make a honey crop. All my money was going to buying bees and queens in the spring, all my pollination money, $12,000 pollination check, gone to buying bees and queens. So he asked me to come down and visit him. So I went down in the middle of April one year. In the middle of April, for us, is a month before apple bloom. So I'm in his apiary a month before apple bloom, and he's got nucleus colonies wintering on top, and there's beards hanging out the entrances of the mating of the nucleus colonies. In the middle of April, a month before apple bloom, he's got beards. You know what beards are, right? He's got beards hanging out the entrance of the nukes. I can't believe this, and that's what did it for me. That's what did it for me. I said, no, that's it. I have to do this. So I owe it to the two of them. I owe it to Brother Adam for coming up with the idea, and I owe it to Kirk Webster for giving me the passion and showing me the way. I started keeping bees in 1974. I bought 2 packages of Wilbank's Italian queens, Italian bees. And when I bought them, they were delivered. The price was delivered. And I say a package of bees cost in 1974 $10.50 delivered. And they both died in the winter. That was me. That was operator. I took all their honey away. You know, I didn't know. I was like a beginner. You know, I didn't know. So they both died. But so I bought more, and here I am. But everybody's having problems with packaged bees now, and packaged bees aren't what they used to be. I don't know. I don't have the answer why packaged bees aren't like they used to be. We used to have problems with supersedure, yeah, sure, but not like they have nowadays. Well, the first bee magazine I have is from 1975, Gleanings in Bee Culture. And in 1975, the price of honey in my zone was 50 cents for bulk honey, for 60-pound cans of honey. 50 cents a pound. And in the first year, in 1 year, a 3-pound package had gone to $19.95. So it's already almost doubled in that year. By 2006, bulk honey, now we're talking about barrels of honey. Bulk honey was 94 cents a pound, and packages of bees were $54. But by this time, $54 did not include delivery, so it was, now you have to pay delivery too. And in 2008, it was $1.28 for honey and $58 for packages. So you see the price of honey is going up and the price of packages are going up, but it's not keeping even with each other. In 1974, my $10.50 package required, at 50-cent honey, required 21 pounds of honey to pay for my package. And you know that a package of bees can easily make 21 pounds of honey. It's not difficult to make 21 pounds of honey with a package of bees. In 1975, the price had doubled. The amount of honey you need went all the way to a median, went all the way to 39.9 pounds, 40 pounds of honey. Now that's getting a little more difficult, but you can still do it. Somebody told me today they made a super of honey from 40 pounds. I think Carla told me she made 40 pounds from a package. Somebody did. So that can be done. But look at 2006. In 2006, it took a deep of honey to pay for your package. A deep of honey is not so easy to make with a package of bees. As the price of honey has come up, it changed a little bit, and it got a little bit more economical to pay for your package. But look at 2010. Packages of bees in the north were going $80 to $100. And I was getting $1.65 for bulk honey in 2010, which brought it up to 55 pounds. Now we're talking about almost a high body again. So it takes almost a high body of honey to pay for your package of bees. That's if all the packages live. So here's a survey done by the Barnstable County beekeepers on Cape Cod. And they surveyed 118 members with 275 Georgia packages, and 60% of them failed before winter. Well, if half your packages fail before winter, how much does it cost you to pay for those packages of bees? How much do you have to pay, honey do you have to make to pay for those packages of bees? You have to make twice as much, right? So now you're talking about everyone that makes honey has to make high bodies of honey to pay for your packages of bees. That's impossible. You can't make 2 high bodies of honey from packages. So there's real problems in the packaged bee industry. You know, if I had my way, the packaged bee industry would either fold up or improve. You know, I remember from when I first started that you could send breeder queens. You could send queens from colonies that did real well back down there, and they would use those breeder queens. They would make those breeder queens, and they would put that into their stock. I don't believe they do that anymore. And I got to wonder what the heck they're selecting for. What are they selecting for down there in Georgia? They're surely not selecting for anything we need. I think the only thing they're selecting for is to make more packages of bees.
Exactly.
You know, that's all they're selecting for. They're not selecting for tracheal resistance. They're not selecting for winter. They're not selecting for honey production. They're not selecting for anything except for making more packages of bees. So how many bees are you losing every year? Are you losing colonies of bees every year? You bet you're losing colonies of bees. You are, I am, everybody is. How about starvation? You're losing bees to starvation? Yep, you're losing bees to starvation. And what about dysentery? That hive died, for sure. Why did they have dysentery?
Spring picture, right?
Hmm?
That spring picture?
Yes, that's a spring picture. Yeah. That's probably, I bet you that's, I bet that's March. I bet that's March. Those are 3-story colonies. Really, those are 3-story colonies. We got a little snow that year. I'll tell you a funny story. One year we got so much snow I couldn't find my bees. Seriously. It was March, and we were going to have a cleansing flight day. And the bees were covered with snow, so we figured, well, we better go dig them out, so at least they'll get a cleansing flight. So we hiked out to the bee yards on snowshoes with long-handled shovels. Where the hell are the bees? I mean, I know I'm in the bee yard. I mean, I can see the landmarks. I know I'm in the bee yard. But we can't find the bees. Well, they're around here somewhere. Thump, thump, thump. There they are. There's one of them. Some of the bees we never found. Seriously, we never found them until the snow melted. That's the kind of snow we get some years. This was a snow year. And I tried to I wanted to put some pictures in to show you, and my laptop broke. So I got pictures on my laptop. It's here. Somebody's Mike's trying to fix it for me, but I can't. I don't know. It's hopeless, I guess. And what about nosema? You know, dysentery. Dysentery can be caused by a lot of things. It's not just from nosema. You see dysentery on your beehives, and you say, oh, my bees have nosema. No, that's not necessarily true. Anything that makes the bees more active in the winter, anything that, if they're more active in the winter, they're going to consume more. They're going to be more active, they're going to have more poop in their guts, and they're going to have to defecate more. It can be tracheal mites, it can be varroa mites, it can be bad honey, improperly cured honey. It can be nosema disease. It can be a branch rubbing on the beehive in the winter, all winter long. There's lots of reasons for dysentery. This is one of them. These are nosema spores from the dead bee I picked up off the snow. I was looking in the bees for nosema. I couldn't find any spores. Finding nosema spores in a beehive is not quite as easy as you think it might be, even if a colony is infected. So I picked up a dead bee off the snow and squished her poop on a slide and looked at it, and lo and behold, look at that. Tony Jadzak tells me that one spore on his hemocytometer, so one spore in the field of view is 50,000 spores per bee. How many spores does this spore colony have? Millions. Millions. This is becoming a problem. Tracheal mites. Do you have any problems with tracheal mites anymore?
Not here.
Not here, but I bet you do have a little bit of a problem. I bet there is a percentage of loss in your apiaries from tracheal mites. It may be small, but it's still there. I still see it. Jadzak in Maine still sees it quite a lot, and he's testing for it. He sees quite a lot of it. I know it's still here. If you're selecting for stock yourself, selecting from strong colonies in the spring, that's how you overcome trachea mites. If you're buying bees from the south that don't have any winter, and they're not selecting for strong colonies in the spring, how are they ever going to be selecting for trachea mite resistance? There is none. So this poor colony, this is probably 2 high bodies and a medium. There's the upper entrance of the production colony. There's the bottom entrance of the production colony. And this is a nuke box up here. This is February. This is the middle of February. It's probably 20, 25 degrees out, sunny. All the bees in the apiary are quiet. Nobody's flying out except for this one. And they're coming out the top, and they're coming out the bottom, and they're dying in the snow, and they're pooping all over. And there's clusters of bees on the outside of the hives. And the colony's dead in the winter with a pile of bees on the ground out front. I sent a sample over of 50 bees over to Tony, and he calls me up and he says, "You're kidding, right? You're pulling my leg, right? You're trying to fool me." 95% infected. He thought it was just a pure sample. 95% infected with trachea mites. That's a death sentence. So I know you're still losing, maybe it's a small percentage, but you're still losing. What about varroa mites? You know you're losing bees from varroa mites. Everybody is losing bees from varroa mites. I don't care if you're a treater or a not treater. I don't care if you have small cells or large cells, or no foundation or natural comb, or top bar hives, or whatever the heck you have. I don't care. You're losing bees from varroa mites. So what are you going to do? Your bees look like this in the spring? This is what they're supposed to look like in the spring, to me. You see there's just the barest hint of green. So this is just after snow melt. So this is probably this time of year for me. Look at the cluster. I'm looking at these right now. We're feeding now just to prevent starvation. And I'm seeing clusters of bees like this with an arc of bees on the bottom entrance like this. So this cluster of bees goes from the top of the hive to the bottom of the hive. And that's what bees that have the ability to winter look like. So do they look like that, or do they look like that? A lot of them look like that. This was a tracheal mite hive. Look, see there's still snow on the ground? This is poopy. No bees left in the hive. This is what a tracheal mite hive looks like inside. The other one was from the outside. Stupid Mike. Stupid Mike left the apis stand strips in. But we didn't know. This was at the beginning of varroa mites, and who paid attention, right? Who knew? Who knew what was going to happen? Dumb. So you're losing your bees. So how are you going to replace your bees? Are you going to catch swarms? You could. We used to be able to catch swarms and catch quite a few swarms. We get swarm calls all the time. I haven't had a swarm call in years. I imagine here you might get more swarm calls, but it's not like it used to be. So the availability isn't there. So you could buy packages. Why would you buy something that's just going to die? Why are you going to buy something that's just going to replace the dead hive with the same old hive that you had before? I mean, it's stupid. It's a waste of money. You might as well just roll it up and smoke it. You can buy nukes. Nukes are a little more expensive. Nukes have a better start. It depends where they come from. Right now, there's a big beekeeper, a mega beekeeper from Florida, trying to sell nucleus colonies in New England, and he wants to sell them real bad. So he's got a field representative in New England getting in touch with all the clubs. Nucleus colonies, 5-frame nukes from Florida, $85. Packaged bees cost $85 in New England. I know somebody that bought 400 of them last year. Tony Jazak in Maine has to inspect this guy's bees when they go to blueberries. Vicious. You put your bee suit on before you get out of the truck. They're vicious. They're being propped up on Thailand. You know what Thailand is? Thailand is an antibiotic that beekeepers use because American foul broods become resistant to terramycin. As soon as you take them off Thailand, they break down with American foul brood. It happened to this beekeeper that bought 400. He's burning a whole lots of them. They're full of small hive beetles. These old combs, one way a mega beekeeper gets rid of his old combs. Sells them to you. You better know where your bees are coming from if you're going to buy bees from somebody. So you can do any of these things, right? To replace your bees. Are you going to do this every year? I mean, really. Are you going to do this every single year? You're going to have to replace all your bees, most of your bees, every year. And I see it happening. And I see pretty good beekeepers. They may be new at this, but they read everything, they take classes, they study, they work really hard at it, they do everything they're supposed to do, and their bees die. And they think it's their fault. And they blame themselves. And they go buy more packages from the same producer. And their bees die. And this goes on year after year. And they rarely don't make any honey. They you know, hon, I thought you said we have all the honey, you know. And so eventually, they get sick of buying new packages every year. You know, I like to say it's sort of like, you know, the beekeeper's life partner says, hon, next year baby daughter's going to school, going to college, you know, and your dog just ripped up the carpet in the guest bedroom, and the refrigerator is on the blink. Do we really have to spend another $90 on a package of bees? And so a well-meaning couple that's tried so hard to keep their bees alive, and they love their bees, but they can't keep them alive. And so they stop, and they quit. And there goes another good beekeeper. So you can't do it every year. So how are you going to replace your bees? Well, you just happen to have a strong hive of bees. There's a nice strong hive of bees. That's got a few bees in it. That's what happens to that colony that I showed you a picture of. If it's allowed to build up in the summer and doesn't swarm, that's what you get. You get a huge honey-producing unit because it takes bees to make honey. So you can split your strong hive. So how do you do that? Well, you take some brooded bees out, and you give it a queen. From where? I understand there's lots of queens available this year from Georgia, because they don't have any packages to put them in.
You're right.
Right. So they got all kinds of queens for you. Geez, it used to be if you had a drone layer, they'd replace it. I hear they don't replace them anymore. No, that's your fault, son. Well, what's the real cost of splitting your strong hive of bees? This is your honey producer. And you're going to take brood bees away from your honey producer to make a new, to restock your dead hive. Well, what's the cost of doing that? Is it just the cost of the queen? What's a queen now? What's a southern queen now? 20 bucks? 18 bucks?
Yeah.
Something like that. I wouldn't sell my queen for 18 bucks. There's no way, but yeah, okay, so it's 20 bucks. So is that what the cost is? What about lost honey production? If you split that hive up, the hive isn't going to be as strong as it was. Now, if you read the book, it says split the hive of bees, and in 4 weeks, the colony will be rebuilt to full strength. Do you believe it? I don't believe it. It doesn't happen. They don't get rebuilt to full strength in 4 weeks. They don't get rebuilt to full strength in 6 weeks. I don't think they ever get rebuilt to where they would have been if you hadn't split it and it didn't swarm itself. So you're losing honey production. So that's the real cost of splitting a hive of bees. Well, suppose instead of splitting your strong hive of bees and you let them go on to make honey, you overwinter nucleus colonies. Look at these nucleus colonies. See, this was taken the same as that other picture. This is just after snow melting. Look at these things. They're beautiful. You put that there's probably 3 frames of brood in there. You put that in a bee box, and I don't know what it is about these overwintered nucleus colonies, but they build up so fast they build up faster than that split. I could split a hive of bees with 3 frames of brood and a frame of honey, and bees, plenty of bees, the same number of bees as that, and give it a queen, and get her laid, and put it side by side with one of these overwintered nucleus colonies. And these overwintered nucleus colonies will so outproduce those spring splits that it's not funny. I don't know what it is. Only thing I can say is Brother Adam said that the queens are better the second year. Overwintered nucleus colonies have queens that are in their second year. It's the only thing I can say is maybe that's what it is. Maybe he's right. These nucleus colonies, they can be used to replace your dead outs. They can be used to replace your weaker colonies. Suppose you had a colony at dandelion bloom. For me, I like to see colonies with 9 frames of brood at dandelion. Suppose I have a colony with only 3 frames of brood at dandelion. What do? You take brood away from your strong hives and give it to your weak hives, right? Boy, that's dumb. That's good wood on bad, right? That's like putting new siding on a rotten house. What's that going to do? That's like putting linoleum over the other linoleum. What does that do? But instead, you remove the old queen and you give it a nucleus colony, and kaboom, and it explodes. And you didn't have to go down south and buy a queen. If you look at your nucleus colonies, not as future production colonies, but as queens, as overwintering queens with support staff. That's how I like to look at it. Nucleus colonies are overwintering queens with a support staff. Who says you can't have queens early? You have to go south. You have to go south to buy your queens because they can have queens a month or 2 before you can have queens. You can't raise queens in Vermont in April and May when you need them. Overwinter nucleus colonies. You got queens. So what if the support staff has to go along with her? Or you can make increase if you wanted more bees, if you wanted more colonies, you can make increase. Or if you want to sell them for some cash, you can sell them for some cash. But I would advise that these overwintered nucleus colonies are more valuable in your apiary than money in your pocket. Because at this time of year, the most important thing you can do with your bees is to get them all built up strong. Get them all with good queens. Get them all with enough brood in there so they're going to build up and make a honey-producing unit. So that's the first order of business, is to make sure all the existing colonies that you have in your apiary are adjusted with good queens and plenty of brood and plenty of bees. And if you don't, those colonies that aren't are deficits. They're deficit colonies. They're sucking resources out of the rest of your apiaries. You don't want deficit colonies. If you have nucleus colonies, you could also use them. You can let them raise brood. They're little brood factories. If you need to take brood out of a colony and you don't want to sacrifice the nucleus colony, let them raise brood. Take a frame of brood out every once in a while. You know, if you had 7 or 8 frame nucleus colonies in your backyard, apiary, and you took 1 frame of brood out of each one and put it in a hive body, and put it on the bottom board of that colony that only had 3 frames of brood. Now how many frames of brood do they have? You know what happens when you put 7 frames of brood on a colony? In about 2 weeks, kaboom. That population is just, they're boiling over with bees. And it didn't cost you anything. And you still got your nucleus colonies. So you can use them as little brood factories that I call bee bombs. I call them bee bombs because when you drop 7 frames of, you fly up to about 50,000 feet and you look down through this periscope there and you pull the bomb bay doors and drop that bomb on them, wow, they just explode. But when you take your nucleus colonies out of the winter, you know, they're not all great. They're not all perfect. Some of them are kind of weak. Some of them might only have one frame of brood. Some of them might only have a patch of brood. Put them in a 10-frame box. Let them build up until the time that you have chosen to make your nucleus colonies. Now, I don't know when that is here. I start about June 15th. So is it May 15th for you? Is it May 1st for you? Is it April 15th for you? I don't know. That's something that you have to figure out. But you let them build up. And then you use those colonies for making this year's nucleus colonies. So what you do with your nucleus colonies that you bring out of the winter, some of them are really good. Some of them are beautiful, with beautiful queens and beautiful patterns. Those go in your breeding program. Then you've got, it's the 30-30-30 rule, right? You get 30% of them that are unbelievable. And you get 30% of them that are pretty good. What do you do with those? Those you use to requeen production hives, make increase, sell to your neighbors. You don't sell your neighbors the best ones. Those go in your breeding program. What about the worst ones? What about that 30% or that 20% that just aren't good enough to sell or to use? You let them build up. And then you use the brood and the bees to make your new nucleus colonies. When you reach that point, that's when you reach the point of self-sufficiency in your apiary. Because your nucleus colonies are making nucleus colonies are making nucleus colonies. And you're using what's usable and you're letting the rest make more nucleus colonies. What do you see here? Yeah, is it just another frame of brood? Got a honey flow on, they're whitening wax. It's not the greatest pattern. It's plenty spotty. I don't know why it's spotty. Could be shock brood. That's kind of like what shock brood looks like when you have a hygienic colony. And you pull out the mummies, leaving an empty cell. Or if they pull out the mummies and then the queen relays in them, the cells with the new brood are younger than the cells with the old brood, so the old broods start hatching first, start emerging first. So you get a spotty pattern. So sometimes it's not the queen is failing, it's shock brood. But whatever, this isn't a great frame of brood. But what I see in this frame of brood is potential energy. Potential energy? It's energy in reserve. The brood in your beehives is the most important resource that you have. The most valuable resource you have in your apiary is the brood. And it's a resource that's in reserve. When you open up a colony of bees in the springtime and it's loaded with bees, you think, wow, that's a really nice colony of bees. That's a good one. What if it's queenless? What if it's a drone layer? That's not such a good one, is it? So just the number of bees, the size of the cluster in the colony, isn't really a good judge of the strength of the colony or the future strength of the colony. But the amount of brood in a hive is. That's what you should be looking at when you judge the strength of the colony. Like today in Carla's piece, we were counting frames of brood. And while the population seemed pretty close, what did the brood look like? There was one with 8, but there was one with 4, and there was one with 3. They looked pretty close in population. In 3 weeks from now, they won't be so close in population. So what would you do with that hive? We're making a little bit of honey. This isn't too bad a flow. The bottom 3 boxes is the brood nest. See, there's 3 hive bodies. I used to run all 3 hive body hives. So from that yellow box to the top is the honey. And these are full. This isn't just empty boxes so I can take a picture. This is a good honey flow. So there's 1, 2, there's 2 hive bodies and 1, 2, 3, 4 mediums. So that's like 240 pounds of honey on that hive. This hive is not making any honey. So what do you do with a hive like that? You requeen it, right? Isn't that the standard practice, to take your non-productive colonies in mid to late summer and requeen them? And why do you do that? So there'll be a better colony next year, right? So does requeening a non-productive colony this summer mean that they're going to be a productive colony next summer? No. Does it mean they're going to make it through the winter just because you put a new queen in there? No. Especially if you buy one of those queens that are still available? No. So what do you get when you requeen a hive of bees? You requeen one hive of bees and you get one hive of bees. I did that for years. I requeen all these beehives every year. Next year, half of them have to be requeened again because the queens I got, even at that time, years ago, half the queens we bought seemed to be junk. So you get one hive of bees by requeening one hive of bees. Well, think about this. Suppose you took that non-productive colony and you split it up. When I do that, I get about 4 nucleus colonies out of it. So you split that non-productive hive up into 4 nucleus colonies. And about a month later, you're trying to keep an expanding colony on 4 combs or 5 combs if you use standard nuke boxes. You think you can keep a colony of bees with a good queen on 5 combs all summer? There's no way you can do that. They're going to swarm. So you have to take out resources out of those nucleus colonies. So in order to stop them from swarming, a month later, you split them up again, and those 4 nucleus colonies become 8 nucleus colonies. So now instead of having one colony requeened to make one colony, you have one colony split up to make 8 nucleus colonies. And if half your nucleus colonies die in the wintertime, what have you got left? You've still got 4 nucleus colonies. Isn't 4 nucleus colonies better than 1? Of course it is. So do the math. If you had a backyard apiary with 10 beehives, and you had 10 nucleus colonies. So you got 10 beehives and you got 10 nucleus colonies. And you had a bad year, and you lost half of everything. You lost 50% of your bees, 50% of your hives, and 50% of your nukes. What have you got left? 10 colonies. Right? Because you put the 5 nukes in the 5 dead hives, and now you've got 10 colonies. How many packages did you buy? 0. So you decided you're going to try raising some nukes and wintering them. So where do you get the equipment? What kind of equipment do you use? There's different equipment on the market out there. You can use wooden boxes, wooden nuke boxes. These are actually mating nukes. There's 4 nucleus colonies in each one of these boxes. And they're divided in quarters. So there's 4 queens in each one of those. So you can use wooden ones. You can use wooden ones you can use double nuke boxes with a wooden divider. It's just a 3/4 inch board that's rabbeted into the front and back board, and it goes all the way to the bottom board. So it separates the 2 cavities, and there's no communication around or under that divider. Or you can use a wooden nuke box with a movable feeder. These movable feeders are kind of handy. You can feed them within the hive. They act as a divider. The queens can't cross around and under and over. You can use standard nuke boxes, and you can make some little contraption, like Scott Forbes. You know Scott Forbes? Erin's almost perfect husband. You know Erin, right? Erin was here, wasn't she? Now, Scott is Erin's almost perfect husband. And Scott made her this little rim that fits on top of her beehive. And she uses standard nuke boxes that she can get from Brushy or Kelly or wherever else. And she winters them like that on top of her beehives. Look at this one, it's even got a bottom board. So you can rig something. We're beekeepers. We're farmers. We know all about duct tape. There's a lot of things you can do with duct tape and baling twine. You don't need to have fancy nuke boxes like I use. You don't need to have, if you don't have a table saw and you can't make those feeders, you don't need to make a feeder like that. There's no reason you can't have that. Feeders are not easy to make. Aaron Morris from BL, the owner of the B list, uses styrofoam nuke boxes. They work well for him. It's not what the box is made of. It's what's inside the box that matters the most. It's how strong the colony is. It's how they set up their cavity. They can set that cavity up if you let them. They can pack it with honey and pollen for in the fall, and they can make a nice round cluster of young worker bees. So it's not what the box is made of. You can use standard size nuke boxes. There's no reason you can't use nuke boxes you buy from a catalog, from a supply company. Especially here, you could winter these bees. You don't have to winter them on top of beehives like I do. I winter them on top of beehives because they're buried in snow. And I want them to take a cleansing flight when they have the ability to do that. If they're not going to do it if they're buried in snow. But you could winter them right on their stands, I would think.
Yes.
Sure. So this is the bottom board that I use. It's a piece of plywood, half-inch plywood, with a wooden rim, a pine rim around it. It's about an inch and an eighth rim with a half-inch dado cut in the middle, and making a slot. And the plywood fits into the slot, and then the rim is stapled together and holds the slot. It's like a cabinet door in your kitchen. You know, they're floating in the rim. They're not nailed in. So then if they work a little bit, they don't work. I mean, they float. It's got a 3/8 inch rim. It creates a 3/8 inch rim above the bottom, but also below it. And it's got a 3/8 cleat, same thickness as the rim, right on the middle. And that's where the divider goes. The divider just about touches the rim, the cleat, preventing the bees from crossing under. Each cavity is going to have its own entrance. They can be opposite sides or they can be front and back. It doesn't matter if it's side to side, it can be front and back. This is a picture of the feeder I use. It's got 2 chambers in it. The inner cover, the bag sits on top and closes this. This is the fill hole. And this is where this nuke goes in to feed. They build comb in it. They don't need ladders and they don't need floats and screens and like that. They're not like those nasty little black feeders that the bees fall in and drown. You know, they have to crawl in. They crawl in, they crawl out. That nuke over there has an entrance like this one on the other side. This is my inner cover. The inner cover is nothing but a grain bag or a seed bag. And it fits on top, and it hits the divider, and that outer cover pushes it down against the divider, prevents the bees from crossing over. One advantage of the movable feeder is you can use it in the 2 nuke configuration. So you have one on each side. What happens if one of them fails? Or you use one. Suppose you use one of them in your apiary somewhere. Now you got an empty side. Well, you move the feeder over, you add 4 more combs, and the remaining queen expands her brood nest onto those 4 combs. Then if it's early enough in the season, you pull the feeder and you move the 4 combs over and you put the feeder back in the middle and you give the queenless one a queen. And now you got 2 nucleus colonies again. So it kind of has some advantages. It has some disadvantages too. It's springtime, and it's time to take your nukes out of the nuke box. And you take the 4 combs of brooded bees out of the nuke box and you put them in your 10-frame hive and you walk away. What happens if the queen's in the feeder? The queens go in the feeder and they lay drones in those combs. They love to go in that feeder. And if you're a crasher and banger and smoker, you change the queen into the feeder. So now you have to transfer that nuke into a 10-frame box, but you better make darn sure that the queen is there. But sometimes you find the queen isn't there, she's in the feeder. Now what do you do? You have to put the nuke back in the box and come back another day. I thought about gluing little squares of queen excluder to that little strip, to that little opening. I haven't got that far. But that's the advantage of using the 8-frame nuke. You can have a nuke box with a solid divider. There's 4 combs on each side. Nice cluster of these. So you don't need the movable feeder. You don't need the bag. You can use little nuke inner covers. If you have a double nuke box, they fit together right on top of the divider. They're easy to feed. You know, the nuke feeders, you can just fill the feeder up, put the bag and the cover back on. But you can feed these with a can, but then you have to have an empty shell on top and a cover on top of the empty shell, empty hide body, to hide the feeder and prevent rotting and all that. But it works. Or you could have 2 nuke boxes slid together on a bottom board, each one with a nuke, you know. So there's ways to rig it so that you can have these nukes without having to have some fancy nuke box. You can have a bag in your cover on top of a solid divider. You see the line of propolis where they glued it down? So they glue it right down. So it doesn't matter where you get your nuke box, if you make it or you buy it or what style it is. The whole idea is to get the nuke boxes and do it. You need to do it. Don't hesitate because you can't make the nuke box like I make mine. Go buy some and work with that. So how do you start your nukes for overwintering? We've all been taught to make our splits in the springtime, like right now. Right now, when nukes when the bees are expanding and swarming, threatening to swarm, and there's lots of resources, we take a split, take some number of frames of brood bees and honey out of a hive, put it in a nuke box or put it in a hive, and give it a queen. And put empty combs back in the parent, and it helps with swarming. So is that what we do? We split our strongest hives? No, I don't split my strongest hives. My strongest hives are my honey producers. Why would I want to split my honey producers? Instead, I split my non-productive colonies. That one, that's the colony I split. I sacrifice that colony. I take that colony out of the operation, and I use the brood and bee resource that's sitting there in reserve to make my nucleus colonies. So now I'm not weakening my strong ones. Look at these. These are honey producers. I use the brood and bees from that one. Now, you've got 4 hives in your backyard. So you mean to tell me that I'm telling you to sacrifice one of 25% of your apiary to make nucleus colonies. That's what I'm telling you, but that's not what you have to do. You may not want to sacrifice one of your colonies, one of your 4 colonies, or your 2 colonies, or your 5 colonies. You may not want to. So you could certainly take the little bit of brood and bees that you need out of every one of your colonies, and you don't have to sacrifice a colony. Do you think I'm going to go in these beehives and pull out brood and bee resources? Where's this thing? Here it is. You really? And then put all that honey back on there again? Take it up twice? You know, there's 250 pounds of honey on that hive. So I'm going to pick up 250 pounds of honey and put it on the ground. And take out a frame and a half of brood. And put 250 pounds of honey back on that hive. And I make 500 nukes. Let's see. 500 times 250 pounds is how much? My back hurts. You know, you ever hear of beekeeper back? Well, beekeeper back is a true affliction, and beekeepers have it. So you have to take care of your back. So I'm not going to pick up, multiple tons of honey to make up a few nukes. So I sacrifice this colony. Now, when I say to sacrifice or to use non-productive colonies, I'm not talking about sick, diseased, weak colonies. I'm talking about non-productive colonies. I'm talking about that colony that you would have just requeened anyway, you know? I'm not talking about colonies with American foulbrood disease. You can't split a colony up with American foulbrood disease, obviously. What do you do with an American foulbrood hive? I burn them. Burning an American foulbrood hive is 100% successful to cure the disease. It's gone. That's why I don't have American foulbrood in my operation. I don't use paramycin, I don't use Thailand, and I burn them. You don't use chalk brood when you have chalk brood like this. We saw a good one today. There it is. See the mummies? Whenever you go through your brood, and you're looking at your hive, and you've got a frame of brood in your hand, one of the first things you look for when you're looking at that brood is that. Do you see that pinhole? That pinhole in that capping? Anytime you see a pinhole in your cappings, you open it up with the corner of your hive tool. Sometimes it's just pearly white. It's a nice healthy larva. It's pearly white. It's all curled up, getting ready to pupate. It's healthy. They haven't finished capping it yet. That's why there's a hole in it. But if there's a disease in there, first they're gonna open it up. They're gonna make a little hole in it, like that. You know, there's two genes involved. There's an uncapping gene and a removal gene in the hygienic trait. So one set of bees makes a little hole in there and opens the hole up a little more, and then another set of bees pulls out the sink pupa. So that's what happens with hygienic bees and chalk brood. But there's no way that a colony with brood like this, if it's used to make nucleus colonies, that colony is ever going to recover. That colony cannot recover. I mean, more than half of the brood in this brood, more than half of it is dead. So how are they ever going to build a population that's going to build up enough to survive the winter? If you have a chalk brood infection that's, you know, a cell here and there, go ahead, split it up. If it's really sick like this is the kind of colony that you requeen, and you don't make nukes out of it. And you buy a hygienic queen, and you install her in here, and they'll clean up the mess. What about PMS? Do you know what PMS is? No. PMS is parasitic mite syndrome. And what happens when there's enough mites in the hive, it affects the mites, the bees' immune system, and viruses kill the bees. So these are all bees that were taken out of a hive that died from PMS. And in the springtime, you know, you wonder, why did my beehive die? And you see some scattery brood, you know, a few cells of brood here or there where the cluster died. And you notice some of those bees are emerging. And they died when they were emerging. They got their tongue sticking out because they were trying to get a meal. And then they died. And you pull them out. When you pull an adult bee from a capping where she's emerging, she's supposed to have wings. You know, supposed to have wings like this, with an abdomen that's as long as the wings. That's a normal bee. But look at this poor bee. She doesn't have any wings. This is an adult bee that was emerging from the brood. Look at the abdomen. Look how short that abdomen is compared to a full-size abdomen. And it's flat. It's a stunted, flat little abdomen. This bee died from deformed wing virus caused by a high mite population. So you can't make nucleus colonies from PMS brood. You can make nucleus colonies from brood that have varroa mites in it. And the nucleus colony will build up and will survive the winter with an average mite load. But once the mite load gets so heavy that you start seeing PMS and you look outside your hive and you see crawlers, walking around in the grass with no wings, you can't make nucleus colonies from that brood and expect that they're going to survive. It's not going to fix it. The colony's dead, they just don't know it yet. So how do we sacrifice these non-productive colonies? What I do is I spread my nuke boxes out around the colony that's identified as being the one that's going to be sacrificed. Or if you're just pulling brood and bees out from a number of colonies, put the nuke box on the ground next to the colony that you're going to sacrifice. You take off whatever supers are on that hive. You know, it may have a super or two that they're filling. They're not full, they're not doing a great job. They're working on it, but they're just not productive when the other colonies in the yard are making some honey. So you take it down to the brood nest, and you start removing frames of brood and bees and honey. Start removing frames of brood and bees and honey. And you pull out the first frame of the first comb from the box that you're splitting up, and it's usually a honeycomb because it's up near the top of the brood nest and it's on the outside. So it's a frame of honey. So you take that frame of honey and you put it in your brood box, in your nuke box, next to the divider. And then you go back to the hive and you pull another comb out. And it's another frame of honey. So you put it next to the divider on the other side, on that side. So now you've got a nuke box with two frames of honey. And you pull out another frame, and it's another frame of honey. So you put it in a different nuke box. Well, then you get to some brood, and you get to a fairly, large frame of brood, like this one. And you put that one next to the frame of honey. And you pull out another frame, and it's another good frame of brood. And you put that next to the other, on the other side, next to the other frame of honey. And then you pull out another frame, and that's a partial frame of brood. It's not a full frame of brood. It's, half a frame of brood, some brood and some pollen and some eggs, some cap and some eggs and some larvae and some, not a full frame, a half a frame, a partial frame of brood. You put that one next to the full frame of brood. And you go across and you go through your beehive like that. And then in the bottom box, there's going to be some empty combs. And you take an empty comb and you put it against the side wall. And you put it against the side wall. So you wind up with a nuke box that each nucleus is stocked with a frame of honey against the divider, a nice frame of brood, a partial frame of brood, and an empty comb. And whatever bees are on the brood. You need enough bees in there to take care of it. But it's not like making a spring split. With a spring split, you're shaking extra bees all the time into that, from out of your hive. You're shaking them into your nuke because it's spring and it gets cold at night. And so when it gets cold enough, the cluster contracts and leaves brood exposed to the cold, and you lose brood, and it chills and dies. So you add enough bees so that won't happen. Well, now you're making these nucleus colonies up in the middle of the summer when it's warm. It doesn't get cold at night. It stays in the 60s and the 70s. And that's okay. They don't need all those bees in there. They just need enough bees to cover the brood, to take care of the brood. They don't need a whole nuke box full of bees. The spring splits, we're trying to build those up into full production colonies by the end of the summer. That's not what you're trying to do here. You're just trying to get that nucleus colony stocked. So they only have a little bit of strength. Somebody always asks, how come you put the honey next to the divider? Wouldn't the bees put it on the outside wall? Because if you look at your nucleus colonies, they don't have two clusters, two individual clusters in that box. They don't have two individual circles of bees in a nuke box. They really have one circle of bees. They have one circle of bees with a divider between them. So the divider is actually the center of the brood nest of the entire box. So eventually, once they get it all set the way they want, they've got the brood against the divider and the honey against the outside wall, just like a big hive would do. Why do I put the honey in the middle? Because if you put it on against the outside wall, it will sit there, unused, a lot of it, taking up space. But if you put it against the divider, they don't want it against the divider, and they move it out and use it, and move it around, and they wind up filling that inside comb with brood. So then eventually you wind up like this. This is my 4 nucleus colonies that I made from that one non-productive colony. And this is what they're supposed to look like. See, they're not overflowing with bees. This is my honey, my good frame, my partial frame, and my empty comb. There's hardly even any bees on the empty comb. There's just enough bees in the cluster to cover the 2 frames of honey. You see that? So there's enough bees to take care of the brood, and you put your queen cell or your mated queen right there. This one's the same. That's enough bees to take care of that brood. What you don't want to see is like this one. See how many bees are in that hive. There's so many hot bees in that nuke that they're boiling over. They're boiling out of the nuke box. You don't want to do that, because they'll swarm in 2 or 3 weeks. They'll be gone in short order. Hardly before they even get going, they're going to swarm. What happens when you overstock them? They only need enough house bees and enough nurse bees to take care of that little bit of brood. Any extra bees in the hive are going to be what? Foragers. Because you're on a honey flow. You're on maybe the second half of your honey flow. So they're going to become foragers. And they're going to go out and gather nectar. And they're going to come home and they're going to pack every cell they can with nectar. And the queen's not going to have any place to lay, and they're going to swarm. They're going to swarm in 2 weeks. If you have enough of a flow, they're just going to swarm. And as soon as that brood hatches out, my goodness, aren't there a lot of bees in that nuke. And away they go. So you don't want to overstock them. I moved my nucleus colonies to a new location. I have 35 yards, so I can make my nukes in this yard and take it to the next yard 2 miles down the road. I can make nukes in that yard, take it 2 miles down the road. You might not be able to do that. You might have only a backyard apiary. So in that case, you might want to shape some extra bees into those nucleus colonies, because the old bees are going to fly back to the old location. That's really something you're going to have to practice. That's really something you're going to have to figure out for yourself, how to do that, and when the timing is. Because your timing is not my timing. Because you're in Virginia and I'm in Vermont. But I give them a ripe queen cell, or I give them a caged queen. I actually prefer to give them a caged queen. Because when you give a nucleus colony a caged queen, you get almost 100% successful nukes. Almost all the queens will be accepted. If you give them a queen cell, a percentage doesn't get accepted. Maybe 20 or even 30% will not accept that queen cell for one reason or another. Suppose the virgin queen flew out on her mating flight and came back to the wrong hole, or got eaten by a bird, or got caught in a thunderstorm, or they didn't like the queen cell, and they slaughtered the virgin and raised their own. So for me, I prefer to give my nucleus colonies mated queens. I have an abundance of mated queens. You may not. If you have a queen rearing program around, what we do is we have now a nuke making workshop where participants buy a double nuke box and 2 queens that come from our queen rearing project, and they get the class. And so for the $90 or whatever it costs, they get a nuke box and 2 queens and a class, and they go home with their nuke box and their 2 queens, and they make nukes out of their own hives. So we have queens for them. So you've gone and split this hive all up, and now you have leftovers. You have the old queen, you have the field bees, and you have a bunch of extra frames. They may be empty combs, they may be combs full of honey. So what do you do with all that? You can't put the field bees in the nucleus colonies because now they're too strong. Well, you can put the leftover frames back in an empty box and put it on the original bottom board, and all the field bees will fly right in there. And when you're making these nucleus colonies up, you pull the frame of brood or honey out, and the first thing you do is you look for the queen. And when you find that queen, you put her in a cage, and you put her in your pocket. Or you put her on a comb, and you put her in a nuke box to the side, just to keep her safe, and you know where she is. So now you've taken all the brood and the honey and the bees that you want, and you're either down to a hive body if you only run hive bodies, and you put combs of honey and some empty combs in the middle, and you put the queen back in there, and the field bees go back in there, and they set up the brood nest again, and she starts to lay again, and you can winter that as your fifth nuke. What I use, see, I have 2 hive bodies and a medium, and that's my standard brood nest. So when I take all the deep frames of brood and bees out of these 2 boxes, I have this box left over. So I just put the queen in that box, and the field of bees go back in, and she relays. She sets up that brood nest again. Then on my last round of queens, which I catch in about the first week of August, I get rid of the old queen, and I put in one of my fresh queens. So I'm wintering this little nucleus colony, this little medium, or if it was the deep, I'm wintering them as a single. So that's like one more nuke that you make. Somebody always says, you know, do you let them raise their own? Do you let them raise their own queens? Well, you just split up a non-productive hive. And so they have the genetics of a non-productive hive. Why is that colony non-productive? I may not know. And don't forget, when you split up a non-productive hive, you're opening yourself up for problems. Because why is that colony a non-productive hive? Suppose it's a non-productive hive because it's got a disease. So you could be opening yourself up for problems. So you try to find out, at least try to identify that there's no disease in it. But if there's no disease and they're just non-productive, maybe it's genetic. So you don't want that old queen in your nukes, and you don't want them to raise a new queen from the brood from the old queen. You want to give them new blood, new bloodline. So I requeen them. Somebody asked me about, what color are my queens? My queens are every color. Black, yellow, striped, yellow stripers, black stripers. That's a yellow striper, a yellow tiger. I get black tigers, I get all kinds. I don't care what color they are. I care about how they produce and how they perform. And then I winter that single on top of a production colony. So this is the back side. This is the back side of a production colony, complete with duct tape. And then plug up all the holes. The holes are too big for propolis, you use duct tape. And with the inner cover on top. But this is the back of the hive. So the notch on this inner cover is on the other side, right? I put another inner cover on top with the rim up and the notch to the back. Now I can put my single on top of that inner cover, and the frames can hang, and they're spaced below the frames, so any debris, the combs aren't sitting in debris. And I put another inner cover on top with the notch down, and now they have a bottom entrance and a top entrance for winter, and they have good airflow. And I close the escape hole, or the feed hole, whatever you want to call that, in the inner cover, because you don't want these bees going back down into that hive, and you don't want those bees coming up into this hive. They're separated. And then I wrap my bees, so I wrap them all together like that. So here's the production hive, and here's the single up here with the bottom entrance and the top entrance. And I winter them just like that. And this is what they look like in April. So right now, this is what, look at that thing. That was a medium that I took all the brood away from last summer. and requeened it in August. And look how it built up. I gave it a pollen patty that was this big a week ago. It's gone. It's very strong. If you're opposed to feeding pollen substitute because it's artificial and you're a purist and you don't think it's good for your bees, and I understand that and I don't care. There's other ways around it. You can trap pollen. You get a nice dark brood comb. You pour the trapped pollen on the comb and you rub it into the comb with your fingertips. And you make yourself the best pollen comb you ever did see. And you put that right in the box next to the brood. And now they've got better than pollen substitute. But they need pollen in the spring, because if they run out of pollen in the spring, brood rearing shuts down. If they run out of stored pollen that they stored last fall, brood rearing shuts down right at the wrong time of year. You don't want them to shut down brood rearing in the spring.